breaking. Let that word sit with you for a second, because what you're about to hear isn't speculation. It isn't a think piece from some Ivy League analyst sitting in a comfortable chair 3,000 miles from the danger. This is happening right now. Tonight, as you watch this, the world you woke up to this morning no longer exists. Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, the man who held the fate of 85 million people in his fist for over 3 decades, the architect of proxy wars, missile programs, and relentless anti-American aggression, is dead, eliminated, gone. Taken out in a joint military operation by the United States of America and the State of Israel in what the Pentagon is now calling one of the most precisely coordinated military strikes in modern history. President Trump confirmed it from the Oval Office in the early hours of the morning, describing the operation as, and these are his words, massive and ongoing. This wasn't a warning shot. This wasn't a drone strike on a mid-level commander somewhere in the Syrian desert. This was a decapitation, a direct, deliberate, surgical strike aimed at the very heart of the Iranian regime. And if you think this is just another Middle East story that doesn't concern you, that it's somebody else's problem in somebody else's desert, then you need to stop what you're doing and pay very close attention, because what unfolds in the next 72 hours will echo for the next 50 years. The stakes couldn't be higher for America, for the world, for you. Let's go inside the corridors of power in Washington, D.C., because the decision to launch what is being called Operation Epic Fury did not happen overnight. This was years in the making, layers upon layers of intelligence, satellite imagery, human assets on the ground, covert operations running simultaneously from Tel Aviv to Langley. The kind of meticulous, obsessive planning that the American military and Israeli intelligence services are uniquely capable of when they truly decide that the time for patience is over. Here is what we know right now. The strike was not limited to one location. This was a multi-site, multi-wave operation targeting Iran's nuclear infrastructure, its ballistic missile launch sites, its radar installations, its naval command centers, and critically, its leadership compounds. Multiple senior figures in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, are confirmed dead. The nuclear facility at Fordo, buried deep underground, designed specifically to survive conventional bombing, was reportedly hit by a bunker-busting munition of a classification the Pentagon has never publicly acknowledged deploying. Let that sink in. A weapon so powerful, so classified, that it doesn't officially exist, and it just opened a hole in the earth where Iran's most protected nuclear ambition used to live. But here's where it gets more complicated. And in geopolitics, it always gets more complicated. Intelligence communities on both sides of the Atlantic are not yet 100% certain that Iran's full nuclear capability has been destroyed. There are whispers, credible whispers, sourced from 3 separate intelligence agencies that Iran had a shadow program, a dispersed network of enrichment activities spread across sites that never appeared on any IAEA inspection list, sites that were built precisely because the Iranians knew a day like today was coming. The question that every analyst in Washington is now losing sleep over is devastatingly simple. Did we get all of it? Because if the answer is no, if even one functional centrifuge, one enriched uranium cache, one working warhead is sitting in the hands of a desperate and now decapitated regime, then the nature of this conflict changes entirely. A wounded animal is the most dangerous animal. And right now, what's left of the Iranian military apparatus is wounded, leaderless, and furious. Inside the State Department, the conversations happening right now are not about victory. They're about control, about succession. Iran has no clear, uncontested line of succession to replace Khamenei. The position of supreme leader was built around his singular theological authority. What fills that vacuum in the next 48 hours will determine whether this operation ends the threat or ignites an entirely new and potentially more chaotic one. The Revolutionary Guard, the IRGC, has always operated with significant autonomy. With the civilian and clerical leadership now shattered, the hardest of the hardliners within the Guard may seize effective control. Men with no political incentive for restraint, men who answer to ideology, not diplomacy. This is the scenario that keeps American generals awake at 3 a.m., not the strike itself, the morning after. Now let's zoom out, because no military operation of this magnitude happens in a vacuum, and the ripple effects are already being felt in real time across every major capital on Earth, from Riyadh to Moscow, from Beijing to Brussels. In Saudi Arabia, Iranian ballistic missiles were intercepted over Riyadh and Dammam within hours of the initial strikes. The Saudis are officially U.S. partners. Their oil fields sit within range of whatever remains of Iran's missile arsenal. A disruption to Saudi oil infrastructure doesn't just mean higher prices at the pump. It means a potential shock to the global energy supply chain that could trigger a recession not seen since 2008. The Strait of Hormuz, that narrow, irreplaceable waterway through which nearly 20% of the world's oil supply flows every single day, is now under the closest military watch in its history. Iran has never fully closed the strait, but it has always held that card. Right now, with nothing left to lose, the remnants of the Iranian military may be holding that card above the table for the first time. In Bahrain, where the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet is headquartered, the command center for American naval dominance across the entire Persian Gulf and Arabian Sea, the U.S. Embassy has been closed, personnel evacuated, missiles were targeted at the base, they were intercepted, but the message was unmistakable. Iran is striking at the symbols of American power projection in the region, even in its dying hours. In Dubai, one of the most visited cities on Earth, one of the busiest air travel hubs in the world, a city that hosts hundreds of thousands of American tourists, business people, and expats every single year. Falling debris from intercepted missiles has caused civilian casualties. Dubai, not a war zone, not a disputed territory, a city of glass towers, luxury hotels, and international commerce. When missiles start falling near the Burj Khalifa, the definition of over there collapses entirely. Meanwhile, in Moscow, the Kremlin has released a terse, cold statement warning against what it calls unilateral acts of aggression that destabilize the international order. This from a government currently conducting its own war in Eastern Europe. But the subtext matters enormously. Russia and Iran have been deepening their military and economic ties significantly over the past several years. Iran was supplying Russia with Shahed drones for use in Ukraine. That supply chain is now disrupted. Does that benefit Ukraine and NATO? Potentially, but does it also push Moscow toward a more overt and angry response? Absolutely. In Beijing, the calculation is colder and more strategic. China has watched this operation with the intensity of a chess grandmaster studying an opponent's move from across the board. Beijing will not condemn the strike publicly in any way that risks its relationship with Washington. But privately, Chinese leadership is drawing one specific conclusion. The United States is willing to move unilaterally and decisively when it believes its core security interests are threatened. That lesson will be applied directly to their own calculus around Taiwan. The question Chinese generals are now asking each other is brutal in its simplicity. If Washington struck Tehran without a UN mandate, without prolonged diplomatic warning, without allied consensus, what's stopping them from doing the same in the Taiwan Strait? And then there are Iran's proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, the Houthi movement in Yemen. These are not small, disorganized militia groups. They are battle-hardened, well-armed, and ideologically committed forces that have operated for years as Iran's forward military presence across the region. With Iran's central command now in chaos, the question is not whether these groups will respond. They will. The question is whether they respond with discipline, with coordination, or whether they splinter into unpredictable, decentralized violence that becomes exponentially harder to contain or negotiate with. A Hezbollah that takes orders from a functional Iranian government is dangerous. A Hezbollah operating on its own ideological fuel with no political leash and a decade of weapons stockpiles is a different kind of terrifying entirely. So here's where we land. Here is the cold, clear, unavoidable truth of what has just happened and what it demands of every American watching this right now. The United States and Israel have just executed one of the most audacious acts of state power in the 21st century. They have removed a head of state. They have dismantled or attempted to dismantle a nuclear weapons program. They have, in a single night of coordinated military action, redrawn the map of power in the most volatile region on Earth. And they've done it with a speed, precision, and decisiveness that no other alliance on the planet could have matched. Whether you believe this was the right decision, whether you are standing up and cheering or sitting down with your head in your hands is almost beside the point now. It is done. The bullet has left the chamber. History has turned a page that cannot be unturned. The real question, the only question that matters now, the one that will occupy every intelligence agency, every foreign ministry, every military command center on earth for the next 72 hours, 72 days, and 72 months is simple and staggering at the same time. What comes next? America has been here before. In Baghdad in 2003, the statues came down fast. The hard part came after. In Libya, the strongmen fell. What followed was chaos that still hasn't resolved itself 2 decades later. The corridor between regime collapse and genuine stabilization is the most dangerous stretch of road in all of geopolitics. It is where victories turn into quagmires, where surgical operations become generational commitments, where the American taxpayer, the American soldier, and the American spirit pay costs that were never on any briefing document and never appeared in any mission plan. The Iranian people, 85 million of them, have endured 47 years of theocratic repression. Many of them despise the regime that just fell. President Trump has spoken directly about their freedom tonight, and that hope, that genuine human hope for liberation and democracy is real, and it is powerful, and it deserves to be honored. But hope is not a strategy, and the space between Khamenei's death and a free, stable, democratic Iran is not a sprint. It is the longest, most treacherous marathon in modern geopolitical history. The next 72 hours are the hinge point, the pivot on which everything turns. If a responsible transitional authority emerges inside Iran, if the moderates, the reformists, the people who have been waiting decades for this moment can seize the narrative before the hardliners seize the guns, then tonight might genuinely be the beginning of something extraordinary, a new Iran, a new Middle East, a new chapter in the American story. But if it goes the other way, if the IRGC hardliners consolidate power, if the proxies unleash their fury across the region without restraint, if an undisclosed nuclear capability surfaces in the hands of desperate men, then tonight will be remembered not as the night America won, but as the night the clock started ticking on something far, far worse. America has made its move, the most consequential move in a generation. And right now, in the silence after the explosion, the whole world is holding its breath. The next 50 years start tonight. Stay with us.